here we are. Welcome everyone to the Markcast as I switch my microphone there. That should be the correct microphone. Set up outside. It's starting to rain a little bit, so hopefully we'll be okay. For those that watched our CFL stream yesterday with Jason Hussey, I am injured here, injured myself filming the wedding over the weekend, so I'm lounging back here. I've got my leg up and the compression sock on, so we're podcasting through. We're getting through today. Nothing like getting older here. Almost the same age as Trevor Harris here in the CFL. So we have Pat Rifino here standing by. Pat, how are you doing today?
Way better than you, man.
It's good. I was texting Pat. I said I went down. I'm limping here. I'm limping at my wedding. Pat, who has given himself a new promotion here, founder of Creative Arts.
Yeah, I mean, Max has his own title here, so I felt edgy today.
Well, I said you were my constant. So I said, because Andy Murray is the professor. You can be the founder if you want to be the founder of Creative Arts. But I had said over the weekend that Pat is my constant. I wasn't trying to, because I think Andy sometimes, I don't want to, there's no offense given to Andy. I like giving nicknames to everybody. So Pat is the founder. We have producer Max. Andrew Murray is the professor. Mike's the insider. We're working through, Matt's like the firehead ginger, whatever we want to call Matt Lyons. So, but anyway, we all have nicknames.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it makes the show lively, and I don't know, it throws a wrinkle into creativity. People at the Markcast, publicly hated, privately idolized.
Yeah, number one. Never forget. Currently, the number one rated USFL podcast on YouTube. So never forget that here. Here we go. Chris checking in. Let's Magoo.
Yeah, I
and
feel
then we
like
have
when
Luis.
we need to put on on like an Eastern European accent. Number one USFL podcast in all of social media.
It feels that way sometimes. So yeah, what'd you say? Publicly hated, privately idolized. I appreciate that. So we're talking here USFL Week 9, going into all of that. We did this Tuesday because we have all the CFL stuff. So we do have ratings to talk through here. First and foremost, Mike over at News Hub. Good ratings for the USFL this weekend. 700,000. We had all the weather delays and all that, which honestly, all things considered, I think was tremendous ratings for that. I'm surprised that. I'm surprised Mike would actually post these ratings because they were so good for the USFL. But no, I'm kidding. Mike, here we had almost 1 million for the night game, 903,000. What do you think? I mean, I thought these were good. What do you make of the ratings?
I mean, I think the most impressive one's got to be the rain delay, right? Because it dropped down a couple, like less than 100,000 people. Like it went from or maybe 130 or something like that. I mean, it was a 3-hour rain delay. And then how many people, and I don't know if we'll ever get this data, but I feel like that number's kind of deflated a little bit. So I started watching the game on NBC, and then I had to work. So I didn't watch the game until I got back to, Peacock. And I feel like I'm not in the minority with that. I feel like a lot of people probably did the same thing as far as well, I have to go do something, so let me watch this on Peacock. So I think when the chips kind of settle, and if we do get that info, I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the highest rated Peacock game. Like when they count the streams and everything like that, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Well, it got to the point because I was sitting there Sunday and I was watching the CFL. I was watching the Ottawa Montreal game, and I'm like, I don't even know how to get into Peacock right now to watch this Gamblers game before it gets moved over. So I think it kind of caused people a little ruckus that way. But no, it was good. 617. Dropped obviously the CNBC portion for the delay had 47,000. Mike checking in here, 900,000. Good. They're going to get destroyed by other networks airing reruns. I don't know. I feel like 900,000 has got to be pretty good for that. I don't know. I mean, I know we haven't had the elusive million rating since the Preakness or Kentucky Derby, whatever that was going into it. But I think this is good. I would feel pretty good if I was a USFL going in here. Obviously, all 4 games on network. I mean, I know the rain delay and all of that, but they were certainly planned and poised to go to kind of peak here at the end. Similar to the XFL did a little bit, where we're going to kind of dip in the middle, maybe weeks 4, 5, 6. We're going to be more cable and then go back to more network windows at the end.
Well, I think you have to do that, right? Because there's always the sexiness, and for both weeks, there's the sexiness weeks 1 through 3, right? And then, whether people fall in love with it or they're just like, okay, this isn't something I want to watch. Like these leagues are silly. You'll lose a couple casuals who just, kind of aren't as invested in it. And then when you put them on that big networks at the end of the year, it kind of like you get those views by osmosis of like, we want to watch this because it's on NBC type stuff. So that's my take on it personally. I like that both leagues do that. Kind of boost it up, even out the averages throughout the year, especially with those mid-season drops. But like with the Northern Division being kind of terrible, especially that Stars Generals game that when you did it in the preseason, it looked way more sexier than a 2-6 team versus a 4-4 team and whatnot. Obviously, it was the best game in my opinion this weekend, but those matchups to the casual viewer who just is looking at records, it's not an attractive watch for people who are just casuals. When you invest in the league and you watch all these games and these players, you're like, yo, Case Cookus, DeAndre Johnson coming back after being out 2 games. This is a good game type thing. But, it's a Farmer Bill who just harvests that crop a little bit earlier that day who wants to watch some football. He doesn't care about that.
Yeah, they have here, 721,250 overall average. I think that's good. Obviously, they had dropped down. I think it was like 370 something there with some of the cable games. I will say, just to slightly disagree and not to be like antagonistic, but we see these ratings come out every week, and I see the comments on Mike's thing mostly from muted accounts, but oh, I can't believe this game or that game. I don't know. I don't know if the matchups matter as much. I really think it's the windows, prime time on Fox, whatever, is always going to do better than cable on. Like, I think it's not a non-zero number, but it's not 50% of the audience is looking at the rankings of okay, this team this still has in playoff contention or whatever. I think it's, oh, this is on right now when my TV is on and I'm going to watch it. That's my take, and I could be wrong.
It's not an outrageous take. I can't disagree with you because how many if you look at USFL, the amount of people watching this, right? 900,000 people watch this game. Shouldn't that be trending? Because if 900,000, because they're very socially media heavy to an extent, shouldn't at least 100,000 of those 900,000 be on Twitter, talking about oh man, Case Cook is battling through injury? Shouldn't that be trending? All the hardcores are on Twitter, if that makes sense. So
yeah, but the USFL, I think, is a very casual viewership. I think for the most part, I think most USFL viewers, the demo age is higher. I think obviously we've seen from the streaming and Peacock and everything else last year, they're not savvy to do that. I think the XFL, for whatever reason, it has a larger hardcore group that is part of it, where I do think the USFL, it's this is on TV and my TV happened to be on this channel, I'm going to watch it.
Well, it's the XFL is a Hollywood league. So, how many viewers by osmosis just came in because they follow Dwayne Johnson?
Well, I was saying with Andy Murray on our show Friday, I think we need to get Messi involved in all this. I don't care about The Rock anymore. I want Messi to come in and tweet about the XFL.
Oh, dude, Messi, I don't know. I know you also said Macklemore. I think you're a couple of years late to that. Maybe Seattle will get a boost if he does a concert, prior or during halftime. But I don't know. It's kind of anything Messi touches seems to spark some stuff. I don't know. Bobby Wagner wants to get involved. I don't know.
I did see that. Bobby's still playing for the Seahawks, though.
Yeah. I wanted Diddy to get involved, especially with all that ruse he came up with the Panthers, Carolina Panthers years ago, where he was like, oh, I'm going to make this team a true image of culture. And I'm like, hey, man, you have 16 teams that would love for Diddy to own. Where are we at? Where we at, bro? You stop, if he bought into any of these leagues, any team in these leagues, which he, if it's about changing a culture and all that stuff, it shouldn't matter what league you're in.
I got a question here, and I did want to bring this up as well, so I'm glad Justin brought this up, and then we'll go into do the actual game breakdowns here. Can we talk about how damn annoying the drone is? Kudos for the casual. I will say, and Pat has been doing a heavier load of watching a lot of these games start to finish right during the season. And just this time of year, my work schedule, it's very challenging for me. I'm watching the CFL games on delay. I was going to post online what's more annoying, the Montreal Alouettes, the horns that they have for the Alouettes games, or the drone. Because I watched this game, the Maulers game, when I was driving up on this, because this was the Saturday game, right? I watched the Michigan Maulers game. I watched it the entire way driving up to my wedding. That is the most god awful thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Is it always that bad?
I don't. I. This was the first time in a couple weeks I like actually noticed it because I watched all the games. I rewatched the Showboats game. Just probably like everyone else, and then the Stallions game versus the Gamblers. I kind of watched like I watched it in full, and then I like sped through it again because it was competitive, but not. It had some lulls. Just because the Gamblers, I felt like were not doing anything. Anytime Magoo's on the field, I'm really tuned into that. But like that Maulers game was like, I noticed it more than I usually did, and now it kind of messes you up because you're like, yo, has it been this bad? I know like last year it had some moments, but like it kind of jerked me around a little bit.
Oh, I thought it was insane. I'm like, I couldn't imagine being at the game, trying to watch the game, or the players. Like if you're the players and you're trying to do play calling and things, and I know we've got comms and all that, I just couldn't imagine if it's that bad on TV, it has to be horrendous there in person.
Yeah, because like like during Memorial Day weekend, I was with a client and we were, in a pretty crowded venue. And it's a lake environment, so people are flying drones off their boats, and like one of them just did a flyby, and I was like, it was only 100 feet above the air, and I was just kind of like, that's loud, like it reminded me of the USFL drone, but then I was like, yeah,
it's not like we went and did drone shots last week. I had one of my guys come. We were doing this construction thing, and I'm filming, and he's doing drone. He's got just like the little Mavic Pro, whatever. I mean, these are like the broadcast. I mean, this is the heavy duty drone, big camera. I mean, these are like the pro big boys. It's just loud. It's low. It's in the stadium there. I just couldn't imagine that. I mean, God bless whoever pilots that for not killing anyone, but that is pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm like, I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe some of these guys, used to be in Vegas dropping bombs in the Middle East. That's how good they are because the actual mechanics of the drone, like flying it, is impressive. Like you said, not hitting anyone. It's some pro level stuff. So maybe I don't know. Yeah, Jacob dropping the truth, man.
All right, let's get to the games here. Let's get to all this stuff. Week 9, I watched this Maulers over the Panthers. This was not a pretty game. We had a lot of Maulers defense, right? I think we had like a kick return, and we had the interceptions and all of that. What did you make of the Michigan Panthers here?
So I wrote a specific note for this. So at the end of halftime, and this was so disappointing because I've been on this guy's like coattails the whole time. Joel Klatt, for whatever reason, was like, and I want the comments to kind of like chime in on this if you guys can, was so like, you can't run a play. It's third down. What are you going to do when you call a timeout? And there was like 17 seconds left. They're at like the 30. I'm like, man, I just run a QB sneak, get 3 yards, call a timeout with 3 seconds left. Like that's waited more than enough time. And then it seemed like they kind of regretted it, like what he said. It was like such a gaffe from Klatt that it stuck out with me, obviously. So I don't know if you remember that. It was right before halftime.
It was weird. I mean, because Joel's widely considered. I mean, I think he's probably the most popular of any of the broadcasters right now. It's a weird like overcriticalness. I think they have for the officiating. I think they have for the coaches across the board in the USFL. I think for whatever reason, the ESPN crew with XFL, it feels like they're a little bit more like, oh, these guys are whatever trying to figure. It does feel like it's very critical in the USFL. I don't know if anyone else gets that.
But his criticalness wasn't right. That was the thing, and he did it. He did it on Saturday or Sunday night as well because I was watching that on Fox Sports app, so I'm delayed. So like Bart Andrews has his offense going out there. I'm like, yo, you need to kick this field goal. Like it's going to be a 4th and 12 versus a 4th and 15. And Klatt, because they had that all QB like broadcast, which I loved, by the way. But Klatt was like, I don't understand what he's doing here. And I'm like, yo, it's 4th and 12 versus 4th and 15. The best you can do is score a touchdown here and tie, or not tie, but, do the 2-1 point. Like you kick the field goal, you get the ball to 4th and 15 or 4th and 12. Like this is actual brilliance, by Bart Andrus, and even that he was confused about that as well. So, I mean, maybe he's just tired. Maybe when you're not there, because he's not in Canton doing this game, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're flying out a lot of these guys.
Yeah, so like maybe when you don't have the feel and you're doing everything, like, it was, but like even then, like, but the Maulers kind of jacked up the play call too, because they did a jet sweep, and then Isaiah Henney took more seconds off the clock, and it worked out. Obviously, the Maulers won, hit the field goal and everything like that, but it was just kind of like, as someone who considers himself a student of the game and all that, hot jazz and whatnot, I was kind of like, what is going on here, man? Like I was thoroughly confused by what this thing, but overall the game, I mean, Josh, they're love hurts, right? That was my thing, or love is not enough.
Love is not enough.
And that's that. If I could shill, that's the title of my week 9 QB rankings was Johnson. The Johnson is strong. Love is not enough. Magoo is McGreat. So as many innuendos as I could fall in there. Director of creative art.
founder of creative arts.
But I, Love. He threw a tip ball at the line, but then 2 of his interceptions were right to the defenders. And then one was in double coverage, which you're like, dude, they were baiting him all day because he's been so successful hitting the seams that they took away the seams. That pass rush was dominant enough for the Maulers, led by Boogie Roberts, who, by the way, took the final snap on the QB kneel, not getting talked about enough. Just shows who's watching and who's not. Boogie Roberts played quarterback this game. Did they record that in his stat line, by the way? Can you go down?
I don't think so.
Yes, they did.
Oh, did they?
Did. Yeah, negative 1 rushing yards.
Oh yeah, I see it there. There you go.
Yeah, they didn't have it 2 days ago. But I mean, you have all that good stuff going on. That
Pat, you should tweet that out so that the USFL comms can take it and then tweet it as their own.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that the USFL comms hates me, but they also use all my stuff. But it's not. It's clout chasing if they do or if I do it. It's cool if they do it. It's a problem when I do it. But jeez. But that the Panthers obviously, like, they've had this continuity thing on offense so many times that, like, it just doesn't work. They're not clicking on all cylinders. They'll have 2 good games, 1 bad game, 2 bad games. And it's a shame because that defense, is so good, and that, Levante Taylor has been an awesome addition. He's kind of been one of the less talked about defensive backs this year. I don't think he's given up a touchdown this season. They don't really throw his way. Like, everything deep ball goes towards Josh Butler, the other cornerback and whatnot. And, it's led by Frank Inda and Breland Speaks. But someone that doesn't get talked about enough is Levi Bell, who was their 5th-round draft pick in the USFL. Ironically, played with the Ravens for all of, I think, about 70 hours. He was on their team, on their roster, and got cut, came to the USFL, and he's got 4.5 sacks right now. And a lot of that could be attributed to Speaks demanding so much attention because Bell is on the other side. So it's ironic because he played with the Ravens, and my player comp to him is Patrick Richard, their fullback, who plays defensive line as well. And they have very similar body types, very similar game. So it's kind of funny they both played on that team, which I'm working on a Bell article about why he should play fullback as well in the NFL. But it's just a shame to see how good that defense is and the effort they put in. And, they gave up 1 touchdown, which they started at, the 26 or something like that from a Josh Simmons kick return. So, I mean, kind of hard to combat that. But, he held this team to field goals, especially with a block punt, 4 interceptions, 19 points. I mean, Troy Williams kind of game managed this thing, avoided some sacks with his legs, to throw the ball away. But in the end, I mean, the Maulers were the better team. It's maybe not the better defense because, if I threw 4 interceptions to you, these weren't – there was 2 of them were great plays, pass ball, deep a batted ball at the line and whatnot, but it wasn't a crazy like it was just good defensive game planning by Coach Horton really, and they couldn't adapt. Once they took away the seams, they were done.
Yeah, I mean, 4 interceptions here, right? Am I with Love? Like, this is not a great game. Not a great game.
Yeah, but they got rid of Barrier, so it's like, what do you do? Like,
Pat died for a second there.
no, yeah. So, what do you? Very sought after man over here. But what do? You have to ride with Love. Like Brian Lewerke, former Sea Dragon great over there. He's got limited experience in NFL preseason and the spring league. And, only played in 5 minutes. They opted to go to Harrison Frost, who has never played in the NFL, played at a FCS college, than keep Brian Lewerke on the Sea Dragons. And Steven Montez was not back yet. Like when training camp started, remember Montez was still with the Lions, so that meant Lewerke was getting those team 2 snaps, which is obviously more, and they opted to go with Harrison Frost. So that tells you a lot about Brian Lewerke.
I have a couple comments here. One question I had, I thought Mangle had a good game. Mangle, one of his punts I saw that just barely was almost clocked down at the 1 yard line, went out of bounds. That's not Matt because he had a killer punt earlier, and then I was so bad I looked back and you see him looking. He's like, "Damn, almost had that." I don't know if Matt is it good for Matt to be on a team that can't really produce a lot of offense because you are punting a lot? That has to be a good spot for Matt Mangle here of any team. You want someone that like we can't score. I'm punting out here. I'm out here every drive.
Yeah, I mean, it's good too because they do kick a lot of field goals, so his holding skills are also getting put on display. I think for punters, the best thing they can do is obviously punt. But if I'm a punter like Matt, who has a lot of leg strength, I also want to get onto being the kickoff guy as well. So, I mean, it's another facet to my game because, in the NFL, they have kickoff specialists, and 2, they also have the punters sometimes kick off.
We have a couple comments here. Strange. I don't have a problem with the drones. You bunch of pansies. You're a pansy, Pat. You're a pansy that you have an opinion that it is annoying for you to listen to. Gregory here says he has not heard any of the players complaining about the drone.
Also, love the S.
I don't know what that is. Maybe the shots. Maybe we was gonna say love the shots that they get because we had a couple of people talking about that. And then Creepo Freak, we can talk here more at the end. I don't know how long the USFL can continue without hardly any fans. We haven't talked a lot of attendance on here. I will say, Memphis is looking good. Some of these things, I think it's going. I think it's working. I mean, obviously we had the thing this week, the XFL losing 60 million, which there's a limit of okay, we spent money and then it's like they just burned the money. I mean, they spent the money doing things, right? I mean, they just didn't make as much as they spent, so they lost. I mean, USFL has lost money as well. It's profitable for NBC because they're only paying whatever they're paying to get the rights to air those games. I mean, obviously Fox is losing money with the USFL, so
yeah, I mean, it comes down to I gotta look at their books, man. Both you and I run businesses, so it's like I need to actually look at their books to care. Not want to say care, but freak out, about the USFL or the XFL. I mean, I just wonder how. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the USFL is losing less money because there's less expenses. So
correct.
You know what I mean? But what is the statement you always do? Numbers don't lie, or figures don't lie. Liars figure. You know what I mean?
I don't use that, but I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could take statistics and politicians do this all the time, right? I could take any statistic and make it in my favor if I'm smarter than you. That's really it. I don't know how many people on the internet, the internet's such a weird place where only one person puts actual thought into things and then people regurgitate their points. And I mean, to an extent we do that, but I don't know. When it comes to business, I usually try to actually know. I probably talk less about business and whatnot of these leagues because I'm not in those rooms, just as I don't want to talk about your business, and I wouldn't, because I don't know. I've never ran a football team before, but I do know income in, income out, what margins are, and gross profit, and some things about taxes and whatnot. And I mean, some of these dudes with neck beards that that we see on the internet, I don't, like, just because you make 130K a year doesn't mean you're an act, anything about business. It means you're good at being told what to do.
I want to talk here. Let's get into this. Now let me know. I don't know if it's this week, if it's next week. I want to know, when am I allowed to tweet out about a sub 500 team making the playoffs? Just let me know whenever we can do that. So if it's this week, next week, you say, Reed, fire the tweet off, because I want to know here, because there was so much grief given to the XFL, the Renegades here. What is happening in the North here, Pat?
A lot of cannibalization, a lot of figuring it out. Like, man, so like look at all these teams, right? Like, well, 3 out of these 4 teams. The Stars are obviously the best team in the North, by their record. We could talk schematics later. But they just let, for almost 7 weeks, Case Cookus, the things that were done to this man on the football field. If this is done to someone in a parking lot 400 feet away, the people that what they've done to this man would be considered assault, and the people who assaulted him would be in jail. This man has been destroyed. And then they get a little, I feel like, getting into my Mets like fandom here, the way I'm talking. And then this team gets a little bit of hope, right? They get a little bit of hope. They get their Jacob deGrom, their Matt Harvey, and Drew Himmelman, a left tackle with NFL experience. And then he gets hurt, and they put this ponytailed goofball named Aaron Cervais in that left tackle, and Hercules Matafafa just takes this young man and completely disregards him and proceeds to just hurt Case Cookus more. And this dude was playing left tackle and left guard for the whole earlier part of the season. And they got this Drew Himmelman guy who's a fringe NFL offensive lineman. And then he gets hurt. And then it just falls off. And I'm just like, bro. And I've talked about it time and time again. They lost Gunnar Vogel and Alex Akingbulu. And they were like, yo, this dude, Aaron Cervais, who crosses his feet when he goes in the pass protection and stands too high when he's in the run block. And I'm half drunk watching these games sometimes, or sleep deprived watching these games sometimes. And I could see that. And you're like, yo, this is our guy. We're going to, like, we have an all USFL quarterback, a guy who could be an all USFL quarterback. This is our guy. Some freaking dude, some ponytail dude, like, that can literally, I just want to freaking, do that, man. Like, come on, dude. Be better. Like, this poor guy, Case Cookus, they didn't talk about this during the game. Like, he definitely broke some ribs, dude.
Well,
Like,
we'll get to the Stars. We'll get to the Stars game.
And then you have DeAndre Johnson, who, I mean, he missed 3 games this year. So if he played 3 games, they probably go 2-1, because especially the Law-Letter games, where this scrub of a human being. Granted, I've never played quarterback in the NFL, but obviously I'm qualified to talk about this. This dude, like, cannot get it together. So they had 3 games without their QB1. The Maulers went with FIU great James Morgan, so they dropped 2 games early. Like, they could be a better team. So, I mean, there's a lot of nonsense going on with this Northern Division. Like, the Panthers have had the only consistency at quarterback, and even then they had Carson Strong, who was delayed the coming to the team. Granted, he's got a plethora of knee injuries, but because he wanted to throw at the NFL Combine. And if we remember, he was working out with the XFL, but got signed by the Arizona Cardinals for a couple weeks, and he kind of got delayed from joining a team. So maybe if Carson Strong's healthy, for 9 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe that record's a little bit better. Got some more.
It's wild. It's wild. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for all that here. Well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun next week. Let's talk here. It's Todd Haley. Have the wheels finally fallen off the Showboats bus here?
So I'm watching this game, and it just seemed like Cole Kelly was throwing the ball like Tim Tebow with his release, like that. And I guess maybe with bigger quarterbacks, that's a little bit, kind of apropos or whatnot. But it just seemed like even when he was hitting Vinny Papali on some of these out routes, Papali was reaching back a lot, and their timing was messed up. And then obviously he threw 3 interceptions, but the Breakers defense was playing extremely fast. Vontae Diggs had a real good game. He was real athletic, sideline to sideline. Jared Fernandez had a real good game. And then like MBT really didn't have to do much. And they workhorsed, and it seemed like that the Showboats just kept shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, it's just wild here. Yeah, because 9-16 here, 1 TD. I mean, it didn't. Yeah, like you said, didn't really ask for him to do a lot here. Seems like I don't know. I don't know what to make of either of these teams really at this point.
I mean, like, the thing is they won 5 games in a row. Eventually, the ship kind of, the ship runs out of steam, and that's what happened. And Kelly was doing a lot of what Kelly was doing, and I talked about on the show, is that Kelly was very successful in avoiding sacks, and not because of his athletic ability, but because he's 6'7" and he could throw the ball away. Wasn't really doing much of that, and he had some issues, and he felt a little bit more rushed, and it looked like they were tackling him high. So when they tackled him low, he was still up because he's this giant person of a man. He could throw the ball away or check it down to the running back. To when they tackled him high, even if they're not getting the sack, they're disrupting his throwing and everything like that. So he couldn't push the ball out. And I saw that probably about 3 or 4 times. And they got a defensive tackle on that team, and his name escapes me, but it just seemed like he was constantly getting pressure. And then Jordan McCray, former Birmingham Stallion, played with the Brahmas. He's played with like 2 XFL teams this year, NFL, AAF, XFL 2.0. If you don't know who Jordan McCray is, you're watching the show, man. You're messing out. But he's 31 years old, and it doesn't look like he's in the best shape. And he got hurt after that, at one point. So it kind of just seemed there was a little bit of issue with him out of the game. And I saw Osiris Mitchell, I think it was, dropped like 2 easy passes that hit him in the hand. And I mean, when you're off, you're not playing well, those little mistakes, they add up. They add up for sure.
So, I mean, what do you make of this here? I mean, moving forward, go back to the standings here. I mean, the South's certainly looking a little bit more manageable here, but I mean, Showboats, it's all just this weird cluster here.
It is a weird cluster, but I think, and this is nothing against Todd Haley. I mean, I think this team played above their record. I think this team, kind of shot themselves in the foot starting Brady White for the first 2 weeks. I don't think they beat the Stallions. They lost like 45-3 in week 2, but I do think it's a little bit more competitive, and it's more reps to Cole Kelly in a pro setting, right? Because now he's at his 6th professional start, 7th professional start, and I know he started a lot at Arkansas and Southeast Louisiana, but it's different because essentially you're taking, a college team is the best of a region. Let's say now you're going to even the USFL or the XFL, and it's like, okay, your left tackle who at Arkansas isn't here because he's not good enough, because it raises the tiers of competition. So despite your collegiate success, you're still playing against a lot of fringe NFL guys, or guys who were fringe NFL guys and whatnot. So Kelly's going to continue to develop and learn. I do think a guy like that, because of his body type and size, may get some NFL workouts, kind of like how Jack Cohn's getting workouts right now. But I really want to see Kelly come back next year, whether it's with Haley or not, because I've been told Haley is not even running the full playbook right now. They were going to ride.
In what regard? This because he doesn't trust them, or?
I think he's so raw. I think there's, look at who Haley had in what's that place called? Pittsburgh. He had Big Ben. Kelly's a big guy. It could be a similar thing where they're trying to do some stuff like that. I also think, and maybe he wants to find in the offseason more of a dynamic running back, kind of like Le'Veon, to where he could throw that guy, kind of what Wes Hills is doing with the amount of receptions Hills has had. Maybe, if he could find that one for the Showboats, because I mean, there's improvement. They went 4-6 last year. They're going to be a minimum of 5-5 this year. So you're seeing growth and whatnot. Especially last year, you had Te'amu. It was such a downgrade to the quarterback room this year. And though Te'amu didn't play as great, as he did in 2020 or 2023, still statistically was in that top tier of quarterbacks.
All right, let's get here. We had a comment, Mark, saying that he's disagreeing with you about Cookus just getting obliterated. I don't know if Case can go back to Philly next year. We'd love to see him go to Vegas. Vegas, that's a conversation for another day here. And then Lee says, I agree with Pat. Cookus had the hell beat out of him after breaking his leg last year, and the assault he isn't during this year. He gets off with the NFL contract to back up. He should take it. Yeah, I mean, Case, it's been kind of the tale all season.
Well, Case had an XFL offer because of Jaime Elizondo in is Jaime in San Antonio?
San Antonio, yeah.
He had an NFL or XFL offer, and he chose not to take it. Which, I mean, they had a lot of offensive tackle issues too. So, you know, you got the devil you do know versus the devil you don't know type thing. And I mean, I think that was the right move for Case. You know, I think he would have rose to the cream of the crop there. But also, I don't know what they were doing because I think Reed Sinnett was a better quarterback than Jack Cohn. But maybe because Cohn's a Notre Dame guy and younger, he's sexier. So, I mean, you definitely saw that in both these leagues that, like, certain guys, you know, had a little bit longer of a leash than other guys and whatnot, you know? Like, they wanted DeAndre Francois to work in Orlando and even Paxton Lynch a little bit. And I feel like because of Lynch was signed later in Orlando, that they were like, okay, this is not going to work with DeAndre.
Let's get here. We got Stallions here. This was kind of the delayed, right? They moved it and it was on Peacock and stuff. Gamblers here. I know Anthony Miller was glued to his TV watching all this stuff. What did you make of Birmingham against Houston?
I mean, the Birmingham has established themselves as the top team in this league. And if anyone disagrees, I don't think they're watching enough football or they're just trolling at this point. To see what Magoo does week in and week out, I think he was the leading rusher this week. You have CJ Marable, who's returning kicks. First guy in the USFL to go over 1K all-purpose this year, which is my favorite stat in these leagues because it shows the versatility of these guys. You know, threw a pick, kind of trying to do too much type thing. Had some drops by Sternberger. Deion Kane, I think, had a bad drop as well, so that kind of deflates the stat line a little bit. But the biggest thing about Magoo is, like, he's able to keep his eyes downfield and not take off for the run, and they constantly bring that up during the broadcast, which I love. I mean, the defense, pretty solid. You know, Scooby Wright coming back for week 10, so, you know, hopefully he gets reps. He's maybe on a pitch count just to kind of be in game shape and whatnot. But really show up or shut up for Mark Thompson, and he didn't do either one. I think JoJo Tillery was like, yeah, he didn't even shake our hand after the game. He went straight to the locker room. And I think everyone agreed that Mark Thompson was the next guy up for the MVP. And, you know, not that it really matters 2%, but I think character matters in the MVP, not the offensive or defensive player of the year awards. I think those awards should be based on stats. But when we talk about most valuable player, in my opinion, it's not really who is the best player in the league. It's more about who brings the most value, which is why, and I've said it multiple times, Andrew Luck, when he played, should have always been the MVP because he was the most valuable player to his team and whatnot, you know.
It's interesting. He wasn't shaking his hand. Like, what was going on with this?
If you look up JoJo Tillery, I'll pull it up right now, but JoJo Tillery on Twitter, I think that's what.
Oh, I saw something go out about this. Yeah.
Wrote like something along the lines of like he just went back to the locker room or something like that. Like
okay.
Which it's cool because he was screenshotting Ace from the USFL network who blocked me, and because he blocked me, I couldn't get in their group chat for this alt fantasy football draft, which means I didn't know they changed the time. So because Ace, who blocked me, I got to play him in week 8 in the fantasy championship or fantasy to get into the playoffs. And I beat him to go to the playoffs. I lost by 2 points. Mike Mitchell's, I think, in the championship. But yeah, no, uber cool that like that kid who throw a little bit info about him out there. You know, thank you for your service, Ace, in the Army National Guard or whatever the hell you in, you freaking ROTC coward. Yeah, no, it's cool that you did that. So maybe stick to building houses, not doing fantasy football, you clown.
What's going on here? Is it Stallions? Are Stallions taking the chip again? I mean, what are we looking at here in the
Yeah,
South?
I think we go with that, dude. Like I don't think that's a I don't think that's a I don't think that's an outrageous thing. I was like, prove me wrong until prove me wrong. Like I mean the Maulers could do it too, man. They're pretty dynamic, you know.
You think the Maulers are going to go to the title game?
Why not? Why not? It could be the Maulers or the Generals. Why not? You know what I mean? Like I think the Stallions like match up better, but better than the break. They'll match up better than the Breakers unless McLeod does McLeod stuff, or maybe he breaks his hand and then Davis Cheek comes in and wills them to a victory. But like, why not at this point? I think the Northern Division, the way it's been, so much fluidity and whatnot, so much fluidity and everything like that. That why would it not happen at this point?
So we had a couple questions here talking about the playoff stuff. So I pulled this up. This is on the USFL, not anymore where it was talking about like the North 1 playing the South 2 and all that kind of stuff. Week 10 scenarios, North, Philadelphia, Michigan, losers eliminated. The Philadelphia wins, Stars clinch North Division. That makes sense. The Michigan wins, Panthers clinch playoff berth. New Jersey, Pittsburgh winner will clinch playoff spot, and winner also clinches North Division if Philadelphia loses. New Jersey, Pittsburgh loser is eliminated. A lot going on there.
Yeah, that's a Panthers shadow. I know Jake has thrown some shade and whatnot at the Marquette.
Oh, we lost Pat again here. Pat's phone's blowing up. Let's look here. There, okay, there we got Pat back.
He went real simple with it. Like made a nice graphic. Yeah, he did a decent job of doing like some playoff scenarios, but I mean, I don't know if he updated it, but he did a good job for week 9, so I assume he'll do it for week 10. But he did a good job of like really Barney styling this.
Okay, well, he likes his graphics, so that would make sense that he would do that.
I mean, he does a good job with that stuff.
But anyway, we got tiebreaker South here a little bit more. Birmingham, so they've clinched. Birmingham but they'll clinch the title. They're in the playoffs, but they'll clinch the title with a win or a New Orleans loss. New Orleans will clinch South Division with a win, and the Birmingham loss. New Orleans will clinch playoff spot and win. If Houston beats New Orleans and Memphis beats Birmingham, 3 teams will finish 6-4 and 3-3. They will go to the tiebreakers. And we have those pretty similar head-to-head, best win-loss percentage, games played within the division, strength of victory, net points in all games, net touchdowns in all games, and then the coin toss.
I mean, we've seen this game before, right?
I think Daryl Johnston should arm wrestle Mike Pereira, and I think that should be the deciding factor of all this.
I think Mike Pereira should have to fight 108-year-olds. Each with a team on their chest, and whoever beats him wins the championship.
I think Pat, are you day drinking today?
I think Skip Holtz should have to fight Todd Haley for my entertainment.
That would be good. All right, let's get to the last game here, and then we can vamp here at the end. But let's at least get to the game so that we can go through all this stuff. This was weird. This was kind of the big high-rated one Sunday night. Philadelphia falling. Did New Jersey finally get their act together here? What did you make of this? Because they've kind of looked like doo-doo all season.
They had the prodigal son of DeAndre Johnson, and they let him cook, as the kids say. But no, overall, he did a great job. Extremely, extremely mobile. Sometimes the stat line doesn't reflect how mobile these guys are because whether they're avoiding sacks, whether they're just moving around, creating a little bit more time and dumping it off for a 3-yard gain. Now we're looking at, obviously, instead of second, and this is the most redundant thing I say. We're looking at, instead of 2nd and 10, we're looking at 2nd and 7. Then you can give the ball to, Darius Victor instead of throwing the ball, trying to get 5 to 7 yards and whatnot. Darius Victor gets 4 yards because that's what he does. And it just they pulled out all, you know, it was any given Sunday type thing, no tomorrow, all that goofy stuff. You know, Victor threw one of the greatest touchdown passes I've ever seen. You know, but it's kind of awesome because he, you know, towards the end of the game, he was kind of one upped by Case Cookus, who did that read option, which I'm watching the game, and I'm like, yo, Cookus is gonna pull it, and then that defensive end made such a great play. Like he crashed down, and then he crashed down, and then he continued, you know, proceeded to trail Cookus. And you look at those two receivers on the side. I don't think they knew that that was, you know, a passing play, and they just kind of figured it out, you know. And at that point, what do you have to lose, Case? So it was just such a great effort by both teams. Like I said, Cookus definitely had a rib injury going on. Looked like he was having trouble breathing, and he couldn't extend his arm as much as he did at some points and whatnot. And I know they highlighted his ankle injury, but man, this dude kept getting beat the hell up, and he has been the whole season. Had a couple lulls and whatnot, but I think Sam put out the number as like he's been sacked like 40 times in like his 15 games he started or something like that.
Did you like? I want to ask about this. So we talked about it a little bit off the top. Did you like this QB's only special? Seth was texting me about this. Listener Seth, this seems to me we couldn't find someone else to do the booth, and so we're going to call it this and do it that way. Like, what did you make of this? The 3-man and with the teams providing analysts from a player's perspective without following the traditional style of the game broadcast.
I mean, Klatt, you know, is awesome. Like I know we kind of talked about his like mishap, but I mean, he's probably like doing all these games. He's probably a little tired, you know, like how we get, you know, doing it. And this guy knows way more about football than either one of us. You know, he's forgotten more football than we know. And I mean, I liked it a lot. I think Devin Gardner has improved a lot from last year to this year. So I think it's cool that he's got, you know, doing the sideline. Brock is always pretty solid as well. You know, both Devin and Brock on the sidelines are always fun to watch, in my opinion, because they're both players. And that's the biggest thing is like, it's like, you know the Heward name from Washington and whatnot. You know who Devin is from his time at Michigan. And to me, like, I think obviously having the players on the sideline, they kind of read the room a little bit better than sometimes not players, you know, who are clearly, so they're just like, you know, a player knows not to go up to a certain guy after a certain type of interception. Like you can throw a pick. If it hits off the hands, you'd be like, okay, you know, that was like, I could soften your ego a little bit. That was a good read. Obviously it didn't work out, but what are we doing to kind of shake it off? And you're talking to the quarterback rather than the receiver who dropped the ball, you know, and came to an interception. And I think we get that a lot from both like USFL, XFL and whatnot. They have 90% of the people there can read the room as far as like how to talk to these guys, which is a credit because I don't know how much workup they have to kind of, you know, especially in the XFL, they kind of got messed up with the ice storm. You know, we don't know their workup as far as how to talk to these players and coaches.
Well, I feel like too. I mean, I love Brock. I listen to him every day here on Seattle Sports Radio with Salk. It's fun. If you live in Seattle, I mean, it really is just kind of the fun to kind of live through. You feel like you know Brock, right? Really personal. But to me, XFL 2023, USFL, like everyone's trying to do what Brock did back in XFL 2020. So I'm glad he's at least here kind of doing that because it does feel like every other one is kind of an impersonation of what Brock did. So I'm glad that he's back doing this now. I know I had talked with him earlier in the season about coming on the show. At that point, he had done like the kickoff game and then he was taking weeks off, and that looks like he's ramping up for the playoffs. So we'll have to, I think this week we're doing the rookie draft show for the XFL, but I want to get Brock back on now that he's back on these USFL broadcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it where Fox is putting their prime guys out, where ESPN is kind of using guys to, you know, the up and up. Well, but you know, Fox has also done a good job as well. Like they had Colt McCoy on. You know, I'd like to see more Colt McCoy maybe next year because I think he's got a 2-year contract right now. Obviously, getting up there in age a little bit, but if I could get 5 games from Colt McCoy next year, that would be pretty awesome, in my opinion.
But tell me, it's a non-zero chance, right? That they just couldn't find the 4th guy for the booth.
Yeah, no, maybe. Like
Okay.
yeah, I mean, like if that came up, it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, yeah.
To
Coming
where,
back here. Oh yeah, go ahead.
or maybe they had like the fourth dude, and like they were just all like, nah, nah.
I'm I'm done. But anyway, so Generals here, like you said, DeAndre Stars now falling 4-5. I mean, they're still obviously top of the division, but what do the Stars need to do here to finish this out?
I mean, they obviously need to win, take care of business versus Michigan. They lost to them earlier in a really messy, rainy game, where both quarterbacks kind of you saw them double clutching the football a lot. When they were throwing it to regrip before, so that kind of messed up their timing. And looked like, but in the end, I think a lot of this comes down to the Stars' offensive line because Cookus is obviously hurt. And if he is dealing with rib injuries, with ankle injuries, like he led the team in rushing this week again. I think he's done it 3 times this year. So if we're dealing with all that, that star or that Panthers defensive line and that second level is way better. So you have that. They have this guy named Kai Nakua in the safety. He's an NFL level guy. Really, they're only going to have to what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to really focus on Corey Coleman versus Josh Butler, which is great. And I do think Corey Coleman is way better than Josh Butler. However, with that being said, Corey Coleman's best stretching the field down and whatnot, or even going over the middle. Those Panthers linebackers like Frank Gindel looks way more athletic this year than he did last year. His coverage has improved. What are we going to do to match? Like, what are we going to do to beat the Panthers this week? Because even though Cookus is the better quarterback, Panthers on paper could be the better team, if that makes sense, especially with that defensive line.
Well, here, so it's looking forward here, right? You have Maulers and Generals. What do we got? Stars here. That'll round it out. I mean, that'll really kind of be. I mean, kind of for all the same way with the XFL, right? Like all these games meaningful going into week 10. Obviously, way different and better than last season with the USFL, where a lot of this was wrapped up already.
Yeah, I mean, Stars Panthers kind of set the tone for that, especially for Philadelphia. Maulers Generals, that's a win and they're in type scenario right there for both of those teams. Birmingham Showboats, I think Showboats need the Gamblers to win, and that's how they get in, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, yeah, that would make sense. Like they need the win, and the Gamblers need the win, and then obviously it appears that the Gamblers need the win and the Showboats lose. So flip flopping right there. So
Yeah,
I mean,
but yeah, I just pulled back up the eliminations here.
yeah. So I mean, all these games mean something, and I guess that's what we want. I think one or two of the like the South Division games didn't mean anything in the XFL, I believe, because you had Houston and San Antonio, or Houston and Arlington played. That game didn't matter. So the San Antonio game didn't matter, and I think.
Well, San Antonio, it didn't matter because like it was the order of them, right? But the Arlington one, I mean, it wasn't as poo-poo as I think you're remembering it. I think there were still stakes involved in all that.
Yeah, because I know the Orlando St. Louis game obviously mattered, and the Vegas Seattle game mattered a lot. Matt Sexton almost ruining that I mean, really, but yeah, because they ended up scoring anyway. When Sexton, friend of the show, had the ball up like that, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I was like, he needed to hold on to that.
Dude, I saw him doing that, and I was like, he's gonna get caught. like he was not as far ahead as that dude as we thought he was. But I mean, yeah, I probably am looking at it, which is weird because of how much I obviously hate the USFL. I'd probably be saying how much more the XFL does matter with their final week. But yeah, I mean, shouldn't that be the MO though? With an 8-team division in 10 weeks, like in the NFL, like most of the games still matter in week 10. So I mean, it kind of makes sense if we really get simple about it.
Yeah, Max here, of course. Yeah, San Antonio mattered. If they won, Arlington would have had to beat Houston to get in, so that mattered, and then they lost. So that was all.
You are right then that it mattered. It mattered because of San Antonio lost before, right? This Max.
Correct. And then
Okay,
because they didn't, then it was a nothing game.
yeah. Because I remember that they had the third string running back went off, and Cole McDonald had a pretty great game as well. So
Justin's asking here, who gets the number one pick? Well, we haven't, we kind of did that retrofit last year where they said, oh, we don't want the take bowl, but obviously they don't need to worry about that right now. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they'll figure it out. I'm sure Moose will come out and say whatever at some point. They'll figure out who gets
yeah, I
whenever
mean,
they do their college draft pick.
yeah, I mean, no one wants the number one pick right now, so I think that's a good thing, right? Like, I think that little wrinkle in it kind of made it worthwhile, because obviously last year they had win bonuses, but what's even cooler than win bonuses is film, right? And all these players want film, so they're, hopefully playing hard to the very end, as well, because every game matters, every stat matters for them, and they're just building their resumes. So I think that's at least now, like the number one pick is going to be a little bit more complicated because I'm sure they'll have to go off win percentages and stuff like that.
Well, and also, I don't know. I mean, we're going to live through the rookie draft this weekend here with the XFL. Like, I don't know if the USFL college draft. Do we care about the number one pick? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that the Panthers had the number one pick. They picked up Jared Horst, and I know he was an undrafted free agent. He was an undrafted free agent in Miami. I think he got cut, but I think he's with the Packers or something like that now. And I mean, the top three picks, I think Lindsey Scott was one of them. I'd have to remember, but I know Chase Bryce, he had a workout, a couple of NFL workouts, and then he's up with BC right now. He's at Appalachian State, Clemson, and I played at Duke.
Well, here we go. We're winding down here. Anything else from you? Any other takeaways from the week? Anything else on your mind?
Not really. I mean, overall, like I really love the Stars game. The Stars Generals game was one of my favorites. Anytime you watch Alex Magoo play, regardless of how bad like the Gamblers looked, like it's just a privilege to watch that guy play. Like, he's had some ups and downs. Was supposed to be QB1 last year, got hurt. Had a spot start, won that, and then he after Jamar got hurt, to will them back to the championship. Like the Magoo story is great. 23 total touchdowns right now. It could possibly pass AJ McCarron for the most in like a 10-game span. So McCarron had 25. He's tied with DiNucci right now, which is pretty cool. Just I don't know if USFL comms will tweet that out after I wrote that, but I mean, whatever.
Last thing here, Luis is asking, what are we doing scheduled this week? What I believe is we are doing our XFL rookie draft show sometime Friday during the day. I know they're going to announce the details of that tomorrow. I've been talking with XFL trying to figure that out just for planning purposes, but I imagine we'll be doing a Friday stream with that. If Pat wants to come on, I know Evan's excited about that, and John Vogel and everyone else. So we will figure that out for Friday. I believe Husky and I will be back on Monday. I don't think we're going to be doing a CFL preview show, but we'll do the recap show. And then I imagine, Pat, if it works out, we'll do this again Tuesday, if it works staggering wise that way. But I think Friday, Monday, Tuesday, I don't think we'll be doing any preview shows this week.
Yeah, I mean, we should be okay for Monday or Tuesday for me. I mean, it's a grind, man. Like we've talked about, and you're, going hard into the CFL season. So, I mean, what are you looking at? Like 36 weeks, 38 weeks of football. So,
It's a lot. I know. At least the CFL is new and fresh. I do like that. I think the storylines are fun. I think it's good going into that. Husky and I have a good thing if you haven't checked that out. But I would encourage that if you want your football fix here, if you have Fubo, if you have YouTube TV, you have the CBS Sports Network, and then obviously everything else with the CFL Plus, everything's streaming. But it's really, honestly, really easy to get the CFL games right now. So once we get done with the USFL, you got, it's a 21-week season, 18 games a team for the CFL. So if you are wanting more football, I think it's going to be a fun ride going into the fall. The games have been exciting so far. I mean, I know it's sloppy week one, but it has been a good CFL season. So,
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm sure practices got jerked around with the wildfire stuff as well. I'm sure thing, they kind of probably went in hotels or whatever. Overall, though, I mean, the CFL is great. I know there's some naysayers on the CFL. I just think they're uneducated on this.
There's a lot of naysayers about it.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, there's definitely gatekeeping by them, but like the overall CFL game is great. So it doesn't get much better.
Well, Pat, I appreciate it. We'll be back next week talking the Week 10 on here, founder of Creative Arts. Appreciate you finding time to come on today. So I really appreciate it as always. Pat's doing a lot of work and grind behind the scenes. So thank you very much.
Always, man. Thank you.
All right, so we'll see everyone next time. Like and subscribe. Take care.
Bye.